author Mr. Shastri, and I must join hands with my other co-panelists who have brought out very eloquently the selling features of the book. I think in my mind, one of the most important things that this book does is to present and to infuse a tone of ambivalence and circumception in times of antagonism with China. So to be able to give that voice to this sentiment that it's not always either and or, the binaries, I think that's a very, very important aspect of this book. Having said that, the audience will have a chance to read the book at length, so I'm not really going to repeat the points that other panelists have covered. I'm going to just present a few queries to the author and also to the audience at large when they read this book at leisure. My first question is, how effective is the media, given the fact that the author is from that particular genre of effective is the media in terms of, and particularly the electronic one, as we all know that medium is the message. So what medium is doing, the medium of media is doing to the message about India and China, their respective places in the world order, their respective places in the region, the kind of images that are coming out from this particular medium, and what it does to our mind as audience, as consumers of that particular medium, particularly in the context of inheriting the baggage of the past that we have, the border conflict, unsettled border, also very disputing nationalisms. So it becomes a very emotive image that we consume that's coming out of the media. So when you do your comparison in between India and China as to what the media has been playing out, I think the one point of compare and contrast without really merging them into binaries would be, what is it in a sense that they are doing? What kind of image are they producing of each other? For instance, China has accused the Indian media of playing a very negative role when it comes to bilateral relations. And specifically, if there is a border issue which has come to fore in the recent past, then the media analogy of China actually gets very negative. So, and I think there is a common complaint of hawkish sentiments emerging on either sides of the border. So, what kind of picture remains embedded in our minds of each other because of this representation from media, and whether there is a chance for the media to not get, there's a term called mediatization, to not fall into that mediatization, not embed images for longer term, but have that ambivalence, that scope, that plan of not really falling into binaries, work as autonomous spaces. I mean, is there a chance in either India or China for the media to emerge into that autonomous space at all? Is there a reckoning in your mind with regards to that? The second thing that I want to focus upon is, what does the region offer in this particular conundrum? When you have a bid to do away with the binary, you do not want to really categorize India-China relationship into negatives and positives, and not get into stark categorization. I think region is the most ambivalent of the spaces to sort of figure out the questions. And why I say that is because you have mentioned in your book references to Mongolia, references to Myanmar, to Nepal. What do these countries represent? Do they help us for India and China to speak with each other in not absolutes, but perhaps in terms of maybes? So how does the region figure out? How much of the region could you capture in these voices from India and China that you were reading? So the interplay of factors that multiplies, because we don't look at India and China as two absolute contexts, but we look them as the contexts within this region. So what happens then? Do people, do different agents who go on to make what India and China constitute together, do they also represent certain regional voices? And also, when I'm talking about region, I would like to also have your views on, because you have touched upon on India-China rivalry in Africa. So what happens is the experience of this region, which is the immediate neighborhood region, is it different from what's happening in Africa, which is a far off region as compared to what we have at hand here? Especially given the fact that there is a kind of comparison in terms of extractive roles of production that India and China are playing out in Africa. And the nature of these extractive roles of production is something which is being really compared by economists, by policymakers, by social scientists world over. So how is the nature of India-China relations impacting this immediate region vis-a-vis their impact on say other regions which are not immediate regions? So Latin America could be another angle to explore there. And finally, the third question is, because you have talked about the US, what does the US really represent between India and China relations? Is it a signifier of beyond binaries? Does it help us to transcend the binaries? And at this point, I am going to be a little bit provocative and say that beyond binaries, does it become a euphemism when you bring in the variable of US into this whole aspect of India and China? Does it become India or China? Something for us all to sort of get our heads at. What does the US really represent when we're trying to figure out what we are to each other? So I'll not abuse my position as the moderator any further, and I will. Should I invite the author? Would you like to respond to what all has been said? And once the author has said what he has to, I'm going to open the floor for more questions.
I think that he should take all the questions and again.